Well, U.S. President Trump didn't mention Canada or the northern border at all during his inaugural address, but he did last night, answering reporters' questions about the 25% tariffs he's been threatening to enact on day one. He says he thinks they'll likely start next week, February 1st. Politicians have been bracing themselves, and that includes two Ontario councillors. Chris Leahy from Whitby and Rowena Santos from Brampton are behind From City to City. Now, that's a campaign aimed at showing the potentially devastating effects of U.S. tariffs on the local economy. They even targeted some of those ads at people who attended Trump's inauguration yesterday. Chris Leahy and Rowena Santos join us now. Good morning to you both.
Good morning, Rebecca.
Rowena, I'll start with you. How are you feeling today after watching the inauguration and hearing that Trump's thinking about a February 1st date to start the tariffs?
Well, I think some things during the inauguration, during his speech and the parties afterward were somewhat perplexing. However, with regards to the tariff threats and ongoing trade war threats, obviously this is going to hurt local economies the most. When a plant shuts down here in Brampton or in Whitby, we feel it in terms of job losses and the impact on our cities. Ultimately, Rebecca, we are proud Canadians. And when the U.S. president threatens jobs in our cities, of course, we're going to fight back. And that's what Chris and I are doing.
Chris, how worried are folks in Whitby about these tariffs? Who have you been talking to?
Yeah, well, there's definitely residents reaching out, like, what are we going to do? There's what's going to impact to the jobs. Like, there's huge impacts if all of the inputs are going to increase by 25%. 10% of Whitby and Durham's economy is manufacturing and auto parts and GM in particular. So when all those costs increase substantially, there could be job layoffs, there could be all kinds of impacts. So residents are definitely worried.
And your campaign, what is this? Tell us, Chris, what have you got and who are you targeting?
Yeah. So again, from citytocity.ca. So our objective is there's twofold. We're targeting municipal councillors in Canada to join us in our campaign to reach out to municipal councillors in the U.S. So as municipal councillors, we have contacts with in Ottawa and Queen's Park. So our counterparts in the U.S. has the same kind of contacts, and we need to get them to put pressure on the decision makers in Washington to realize what are the impacts of tariffs. Like 36 U.S. states, their number one trading partner is Canada. It's really important that we do that. And here in Whitby, I live between two huge nuclear power plants, and we export electricity to the U.S. So when Premier Ford says, when the tariffs go online, the power goes offline, we hope that the Americans don't need too many candles to keep the lights on. They need to understand the impacts.
Okay, Rowena, what about you? Why is it important, this conversation, for folks in Brampton?
Well, the city of Brampton is home to CN's largest intermodal hub across the country. The goods movement sector here in Brampton is one of the biggest employers in terms of logistics. So when those freight trains and trucks come into our city at the intermodal hub, they're coming in from the United States and across Canada, and then back again to the United States and across Canada. Those freight cars are full of grain, they're full of auto parts, they're full of natural resources and mining goods. And so if those trains slow down and trucks slow down because of the tariffs, we're going to feel the job losses here in Brampton, but also on the other side where those trains are dropping off the freight, they're going to feel it over in the United States as well.
Just before Trump's inauguration yesterday, Ontario Premier Doug Ford said this.
And I've sent a direction to the LCBO, these tariffs come, to clear off every bit of U.S. alcohol off the shelves. Let's start promoting more Ontario-made wines and the vodkas and spirits. That's what we need to do. We're the largest purchaser of alcohol in the entire world. They will feel the pain. I will make sure I communicate this to our other premiers that they should be following suit.
Rowena, what do you make of that, this reaction to how Ford is suggesting we handle some of the threats?
Well, I think it's important for us to push back on a bully like Trump, who continues to mock Canada and our economic sovereignty. Over the holidays, I went to Tennessee, and while I was there, I visited and toured the Jack Daniel's distillery in small town Lynchburg, where they produce and bottle every single drop of their whiskey. And it's the main source of jobs for their small town. And the majority of their rye is actually sourced from Canada. Jack Daniels is prominent on the shelves of the LCBO. A trade war will hurt the local economy of small town Lynchburg, and Jack Daniels is no longer take up shelf space at the LCBO. I support what Doug Ford is doing because we have to retaliate. We have to show them that.
Chris, what are your thoughts? What more perhaps would you like to see Canadian officials and perhaps the government of Doug Ford do in this situation?
Well, part of it is that it's exactly like Rowena's saying, like the best way to fight back with a bully is strength. Like we need to put the tariffs on. We got to put the tariffs on the oil. Like we send 4.42 million barrels of oil a day. The U.S. consumes about 20. So a huge percentage of their oil comes from Canada. We got to increase those costs. We got to impact U.S. consumers with the price to make them realize if you're going to attack your closest friend and ally, we're sadly going to have to fight back. It's not in their interest. It's not in our interest, and we have to retaliate.
We know the provincial government is also spending money to try to get this message across to Americans and to Doug Ford. So why take it up on a municipal level as well, Chris? Why did you want to weigh in?
Well, part of it is like residents are always reaching out and expecting for us to take action regardless of the issue. Like people reach out to us for federal, provincial, and municipal issues because municipal councillors are so accessible. And the other piece, there's a bit of a vacuum in Ottawa right now with all of the challenges between all the parties and then when there's going to be election and then almost no legislation has been passing lately. So I think we're happy to step in that vacuum, have a municipal response and show that we're fighting for our residents and have that Team Canada approach to make sure we get that message across to U.S. consumers that you can't be attacking us. We're not going to respond to your threats. We're going to fight back. And we're your friends. Like, really, we should find a way to work this out. Like, we're your closest and strongest ally. Okay,
Chris and Rowena, we've run out of time. Thank you for making time for us.
Thanks
so much.
Regional Councillors Chris Leahy from Whitby and Rowena Santos from Brampton. They're behind the campaign From City to City. It's an anti-tariff campaign.